Ahoy and welcome. This is Admiral. It's a bit disappointing how limited terrain-related interactions are in AoE 2. There are a couple interesting ones, like the well-known elevation damage mechanic,
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
or the slightly lesser-known case of buildings on cracked terrain taking more damage. But in my opinion, the most obviously lacking element is the absence of any kind of function for roads, making them strictly a form of terrain eye candy for scenarios. While there's merit in keeping the game simple and not going overboard with new gimmicks, something basic and grounded like extra speed for units moving along roads would be an intuitive and fun way of getting more mileage out of existing mechanics that are currently only used in limited situations, like the Caravanserai speed boost for a single unit. This idea has been proposed by others in the past and always seems to be very well received by at least a portion of the community. And while some may have their reservations about the need for such a feature, I don't think there are strong grounds for assuming that it would be difficult to code or especially likely to cause bugs. After all, we have the technology for it already, so to speak. This would also be a nice intersection of history and gameplay. In most of the world throughout history, roads were essential arteries connecting the countryside to towns and cities, facilitating communication, commerce, and the movement of soldiers and citizens. And in many other games, they combine compelling gameplay value with a nice aesthetic and the satisfying experience of linking together a town or far-flung empire. Admittedly, some mechanics that are well-suited to other games may be less fitting for AoE 2, which has always tended to emphasize combat more than city building. But where this may have applications for both, I think it's worth considering. At the moment, of course, roads in AoE 2 unfortunately do absolutely nothing. At least, not until today. I've made a mod for buildable roads that I'll be showcasing as we explore how this could work as a new feature in AoE 2. This previously pointless path can now increase the speed of most units walking on it by 10%, giving villagers a faster commute to any given workplace and speeding soldiers on their way to the front lines. All units with wheels gain an additional speed boost, being able to roll along 15% faster than their base movement speed, making it especially tempting to consider paving the path for your trade carts. Although Caravanserais still have their unique place to shine by providing a greater speed advantage and healing at range, whereas roads only boost the speed of units moving directly on them. This is also beneficial for siege units, from trebuchets to food trucks, whose lethargic locomotion is improved by 15%. And it applies to the War Wagon and the Wrath in order to keep logical consistency and provide a bit of extra flavor to those units. Although if you've seen my Wrath video, you'll already know that that unit is bursting with flavor. Regarding cost, I envision roads as fairly inexpensive, perhaps 1 to 2 stone per tile covered, although taking a moderate amount of time to build, meaning they won't siphon too much stone away from the budget for town centers or castles, but you'll want to hold off on them until the mid or late game when the work time of a few villagers is not at a premium. Like walls, they can be placed very efficiently by clicking and dragging across a desired length of ground, although each segment can cover more ground than a single wall tile, and here I have them covering 9 tiles, at a cost of only 10 stone per segment, or a little over 1 stone per tile covered. You could instead have them cover 4 or 16 tiles per section, although I think 9 is a reasonable compromise between coverage and practical placement. One key implementation question is whether roads should apply only to the player placing them and his team, or whether enemy units should also be able to use them. While it would certainly be most realistic to have all players benefit from any road, it would be most consistent with the game's logic to not allow enemies to benefit from something you invested in without converting or claiming it somehow, similar to a monk converting a unit or a villager claiming a farm. Or perhaps they ought to behave like walls, unable to be claimed or used by enemies at all. Each option has its pros and cons, and I'd be fine with it going either way, but for purposes of this mod, I'll just be having roads benefit the player and allies, and not be convertible, but be low priority targets like walls that enemies will attack if you don't have units or buildings in sight. That seems likely to be the least annoying implementation, and the one that gives the player most control, so you can build freely without having to worry about this feature being used against you. Buildable roads would also open up interesting new avenues for civilization bonuses. Some obvious contenders would be bonuses for roads to be cheaper, built faster, generally or specifically more effective for all or particular units, larger, more durable, immune to any potential conversion behavior, or able to be built by a military unit. Well, this probably wouldn't have much of a use case on competitive open 1v1s, it certainly wouldn't hurt to have, and would get a lot of mileage as a very fun feature for casual team games, AI skirmishes, and perhaps even Rage Forest games. And it would add a ton of flavor to new and existing scenarios and campaigns, and could even serve important strategic objectives of creating and defending your trade routes or reinforcement roads, or destroying those of your enemy. So between the faster unit movement, potential for more diverse bonuses and gameplay, and the sheer satisfaction of finally being able to place and meaningfully use roads, there's a lot to like here, and all wrapped up in a relatively simple and intuitive mechanic that one might reasonably expect roads to have, even if they knew little or nothing else about the game. So my strong recommendation to the game developers, who could do so much worse with their time than keeping up with Admiral, would be at the very least to add buildable roads to the scenario editor, to let people try it out and consider adding it to standard gameplay if it proves popular. But failing that, I've uploaded this mod to the Steam Workshop, and you can try it out today if you like. So those are some of my thoughts on the concept of buildable functional roads, but what do you think about this idea? Is this something you'd want in standard games, or is it better added as a scenario editor exclusive? Or does the very thought of such a feature give you road rage and make you want to return to the simpler days of Age of Kings? Whatever your thoughts, I'd be interested in hearing them. Mandatum, liking. Mandatum, subscribing. That's all for today. Till next time.